Today we unveil Australia's top 40 tax dodgers, the crème de la crème, the global elite of tax shysters in Australia. Who will win? Who will take out the gong for 2022? Is it possible that one company could have racked up $80 billion in revenue over the past 8 years, according to the ATO data, and not paid 1 red cent in tax? So they banned cigarette advertising in the 1990s in Australia. What has now become the Harvey Norman Trophy in the rugby league used to be the Winfield Cup. Benson and Hedges sponsored the cricket. Cigarette companies, Peter Stuyvesant sponsored the sailing, and so on. Well, that all came to an end. And now the push is on to ban fossil fuel sponsorships in sport. We've seen Santos, Alinta Energy and Hancock Prospecting, Gina Rinehart's vehicle. They've all had the plug pulled on their deals respectively by Tennis Australia, Cricket Australia and Netball Australia due to pressure by players, fans and other interested parties. So what's the end game here? What are they doing? Why is it when you turn on the rugby union, you see the Queensland Reds and the New South Wales Waratahs playing each other, both emblazoned with Santos on the back of their jerseys? Santos is a major sponsor of the Wallabies of Australian rugby. Now, there was a list that was published recently by a researcher for 350.org, which found hundreds of sporting sponsorships by fossil fuel companies, everything from the Nippers to the local fun run to elite sport, the top of the AFL, the Dockers. It is ubiquitous. It is getting bigger. So what are they actually doing? And what's Chevron doing with its gigantic billboards near the airport? It's not as if motorists could look at that and go, gee, I better go down to the petrol station and fill up my tank with some Chevron. This is a wholesaler. This is a company that extracts our natural resources and exports them. It's about social license. That's what it is. All the advertising and sponsorship is about winning a social license to operate. But whereas the tobacco companies were banned, they pay an incredible amount of tax. BAT, British American Tobacco, the biggest, last time we looked, it was paying $4 billion in taxes and levies on $6 billion in income. Same deal, Philip Morris, slightly smaller, but same dimension, billions in taxes. But as our top 40 tax dodgers chart reveals today, these guys in the fossil fuel land again feature at the very top of these league rankings amongst Australia's biggest tax dodgers. So without further ado, let's have a look at our number one. Our number one, yet again, it's been number one since Glencore was knocked off its pedestal a few years back, the big coal miner, and that is ExxonMobil Australia, one of the 4 players in Australia's gas cartel responsible for holding Australian households to ransom over electricity prices and gas prices. Now, we've got quite a pattern here. This is 8 years of data, and over that 8 years, Exxon paid not 1 cent in tax, but recorded over $80 billion in revenue, over $80 billion in revenue. It's an incredible amount. On the sporting sponsorships, we're talking Woodside and Shell, Santos, Origin Energy, all the big fossil fuel companies, all backing sporting teams, all chasing a social license to operate. Well, why don't they pay some bloody tax? That's what they should be doing. What an irony it is. What an irony it is that the cigarette companies, Philip Morris and BAT, pay so much tax, but these guys, the fossil fuel companies, pay so little. Who else have we got here? Let's have a quick run through. ExxonMobil Australia, number 1. Lend-Lease Corporation, the big developer, gets oodles of government revenue, pays virtually no tax. It's paid $8 million in tax on almost $70 billion in revenue over 8 years. Toll Holdings is number 3. Virgin Australia, part of Australia's airline duopoly, comes in at number 4. We haven't got Qantas on the list because our metrics, we've changed the metrics slightly in our calculations this year to show who the most aggressive tax dodgers are. Qantas makes more income, but it is not quite as aggressive on the tax front as Virgin, which I don't think has ever paid income tax in Australia. So Virgin is there, $40 billion, zero tax. Hope Downs, Amcor, Graincorp, Santos, $32 billion in revenue over 8 years, $3 million in tax. just the 3 million. Now, these figures are lagging. So therefore, 2021, the ATO data, transparency data, is a little bit old. So they will be paying tax this year, Exxon included. They have said they will. They're making such obscene profits now due to profiteering in the Ukraine that they really can't get away with it. Their social license is stretched to the limit in its non-existence. Vodafone, good old Vodafone's there, still building its network. That would be the excuse. They're still soaking up their tax losses after 8 years. So Vodafone's there with 30 billion in total income, zero tax. Then we've got AP LNG, one of the big liquid natural gas exporters, zero on 30 billion of income. Peabody Coal Company, 26 billion income, zero tax. Yancoal, 25 billion, zero tax. BG International, another fracking group now owned by Shell. BG is there, $25 billion in total income, zero tax. The car companies are there. They've got something of an excuse. A couple of the big property groups are there. They've got a bit of an excuse, Mirvac and Stockland and Sydney Airport, because they are stapled trusts. So it's incumbent upon the members of the trust to pay the tax, not the stapled company and trust. Who else have we got? Puma Energy. We've got Swiss Re, which is an insurance company. No surprise there. A lot of financial juggling. We've got BPAH, Brookfield, the people that are now bidding, that have just won AusNet and are now bidding for Origin Energy. BPAH, Brookfield in Australia, multiplex, zero yet again. 15 billion in income. Disgraceful. So the irony then that the cigarette companies pay so much more tax than the fossil fuel companies needs to be pushed home to government. Cigarette advertising is gone, except of course the National Party, the party of Barnaby Joyce, is still sponsored by Philip Morris. That is a beauty. Otherwise, it's all over for tobacco advertising in Australia. But when will the fossil fuel companies deserve their social license to operate in this country, to drill our soils and our seabeds, to take our resources and export 90% of them overseas, the coal and the gas, warming the climate globally, destroying the environment through fracking and paying no tax? The government sorely needs to have a look at this one and act with a super profits tax or a carbon export levy. Have a happy new year. Best from the team at Michael West Media. If you can support us to shine the light on this stuff, please throw us a few bucks or buy a cap or some merch. Have a good 2023.